Welcome to your crochet bouquet video for your pumpkin worked in flat rows. Working your pumpkin in flat rows means you're going to be creating a chain to start with. Depending on the size of your pumpkin, you want to make one more chain on top of the number of stitches that you have. So for our small size, we're going to have 10 stitches for our rib, which means we're going to want to create 11 chains. To create your chain, you're going to yarn over and then pull that through the loop that's on your hook already. You want to make sure you give yourself enough space when you twist your hook to capture the yarn in order to pull it through nice and easily. You can see here that I'm taking hold of the chain that I've already worked in order to help move it through. Once you've got your 11 chains, you want to be counting the second chain from your hook. That doesn't include the loop that's already on your hook. Then insert your hook, I'm saying hook far too many times, through that side loop of your chain, and in order to do your double crochet, you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, which means pull it back through, so you've got 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through both of those loops, making sure you're doing so one at a time. You want to make sure that when you're doing it, you're not accidentally pulling through those first 2 loops, because that will mean that it gets incredibly stiff and you'll end up with 2 loops on your hook still rather than 1. When you've finished your stitch, you want to be able to see that there are 2 loops across your working yarn, not just 1. You also want to be making sure that you're not just pulling through and doing a slip stitch, so inserting, yarning over, pulling back through, and only pulling through 1, so you end up with those 2 loops. At the end of your row, you should be able to see a series of V's on the tops of your stitches. For your next row, what you're going to be doing is working into the back loop only. So do 1 chain, this is known as your turning chain, and make sure that you're not losing any stitches at either side, that it's not pulled askew with. And you're going to work in the middle of that top of your stitch, so twist it towards you so you can see the line of V's and insert your hook in the middle, going under that back loop only. This is how you're going to work all of your remaining rows. You want to make sure that you're counting to 10, 20 or 30 or however many stitches you have per row, so that you're not losing any of your stitches at all. So this is using your double crochet into the back loop only. When you reach the end of your row, you will notice that, especially on this first row, it is slightly pulled down. This is where some people do lose their stitches, so you want to make sure that you're always counting your stitches on each row so you're not losing any as you go. You'll notice this middle ridge when you look at your work. Each of your rows after that are worked in the exact same way, so chaining 1 and working a double crochet into the back loop only of every single stitch. Like I've said already, it's really important to make sure that you keep counting your stitches, that you've always got the number that you think you do, or think you should have. Make sure when you reach that end that you're looking to make sure there's no unfulfilled V's and you're double checking that you have 10 stitches. The only way you will be able to see this is if you count the V's across the top or count the bumps you can see on the side of your stitches as you go. Of course, counting as you go can always get distracted by other people around you, and there's always people counting at you. Just make sure when you see that last V there that you are still going into it. It may seem a little bit hidden by that chain stitch, but it's always super important to go into it. Once you've reached the desired number of rows, you'll be able to count them by counting the ridges from that 2 pairs. So every 2 rows will create this up and down ridge and make it easy for you to count where those rows are. You want it to sit with a nice flat edge on each side so it looks mirrored. Can you see here where at the beginning there's like an extra flat bit and then the bumps begin? That means this is your odd side and your odd numbers of stitches. What you want to do is to make sure you have this mirrored looking side facing you, then fold it in half so the odd side is on the outside. To join it, you're going to work a slip stitch, so that is inserting your hook through the back loop only still, and then through that chain from the beginning, going through both of those, yarning over and pulling that yarn through all of the loops on your hook. So inserting into the back loop and into the corresponding chain on the other side, yarning over and pulling through everything. You want to keep going with this until you have reached the other end. Once you've reached that end, you want to trim your length of yarn from the working ball and give yourself enough to be able to go around the entirety of your bottom. Using your crochet hook or indeed a yarn needle, whatever you desire, you're going to hook through. I go through every other end. If you try and do each row, it will make that bottom bit really crowded. So I go through every other bump. You'll be able to see a slightly more horizontal line, and that's where I put my hook, underneath those, and just weave your yarn tail underneath every other row in order to be able to pull it nice and tight at the end. So in this size I'm doing 20 rows, so I've weaved through 10 ends. Once you've gone all the way round, you want to give a nice firm tug on that piece of string. You can see here where it's all going round. Give a nice firm tug and that pulls in the ends. If it's been worked correctly, you should have this yarn tail that you can nice and firmly give a nice double knot to in order to secure your work. Make sure you do a double knot so it can't come undone. You don't need to worry about trimming off these ends, as they'll be inside your pumpkin at the end. Now turn it inside out and you should have a nice neat beginning and end join to your pumpkin. Now it's time to stuff. Take some stuffing or some offcuts of yarn or whatever it is that you want to put inside. You will need more than you think, so if your stuffing looks like it's going to be too much, it does take up way more volume on the outside of your toy than on the inside. Take your hook back again, and I like to join on a piece of yarn with a double knot, and then you're going to follow the exact same technique for this edge as you did your first. Once you reach that end again, you're going to give it a really nice firm tug, and because you've double knotted on the beginning, your yarn won't come through, and then give another double knot just to secure it. Don't worry too much about these ends, as you're going to secure your stalk over the top of them at the end. What you can do is give these a nice little trim so there's not too much to go up underneath the stalk at the end. And there you have it. I always think this version looks a little bit like a Satsuma, especially this size. And there you have it. Your little pumpkin body is made, worked in the round flat. Check out the next part for how to make your stalk.